your destination for first content, updates, and gaming.
Welcome to the fun.
We can't wait for the Rapid React kickoff on Saturday, and make sure you join us Saturday through Monday for Robot in 3 Days, where we'll be out at Kettering University filming the Bulldogs team. During RI3D, you'll get to interact with concept, design reviews, programming, prototypes, testing field and game components, and completed assemblies, all while taking your comments and questions in chat. While you can ask questions at any time, we'll have a daily recap each day at 8:30 p.m. Eastern with the entire team together, so you can ask questions as well as giveaways from AndyMark, Rev Robotics, The ThriftyBot, Kettering, and more. Watch live at twitch.tv/firstupdatesnow and view all the videos we'll be posting at youtube.com/firstupdatesnow. Good luck to all teams for the Rapid React season, and we hope to see you live for Robot in 3 Days.
Hello and welcome to the CADathon 11 stream for our awards. We've got 21 excellent submissions to show you all tonight, and these are for our 11th CADathon, like I said, and this year's game, Tilt Shift. Tilt Shift is a game played with 15-inch tetras on shifting goals. These goals can be locked in place by robots, and the tetras can be stacked on top of each other throughout the game. In an end game, the robots are allowed to hold and score up to 6 of the tetras, and they can climb onto those triangular platforms that you can see in the slide. We've got a couple of first ones up, and unfortunately we weren't able to judge these 2 robots due to some issues with their submission, but we still wanted to show them to you because they're some cool robots. So up first, we've got team number 423-2702 Rubbles. This team was composed of Fraser Morrison and Lachlan Morrison. Unfortunately, we weren't able to judge their entire robot, but as you can see in there, they've got a cool elevator and some interesting starts of a mechanism, as well as a swerve drive. We're going to go through these first couple a little bit quick, just because we don't have much comment because we weren't able to judge them. Next up, we have tied for them in 20th, team number 732, Look Hughes Alone. This team was composed of Patrick Hughes, and they tied for 20th. You can see they've got a robot in there as well. They've got a cool little intake with some Spark Max holders on there, as well as a fairly large elevator. So really cool thing. Looks very 2017 inspired. It's a cool robot. It's unfortunate we weren't able to look at it closer. All right. Now, as we get into our actual judging, I want to introduce our 2 awesome judges we have with us tonight. Right below me, we have Eric from Rev Robotics and formerly of Team 2826 Wave Robotics. And we also have John from team number 1684 Chimeras. Welcome, guys, to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So these guys took a look at the judging. I did not do any of the judging. I will be interjecting and talking about some of these robots because I did look at them. But these guys did the real looking in them and doing the scoring. So let's get up to our first team, team number 403, which is made up of teams from 45 to 61. What do we got to say about this guy?
Yeah, so it's definitely simplistic. I believe in their submission they said they didn't have a ton of time, if I remember correctly, but they were going for a simple passive mechanism so that way they could take on the tetras and then quickly deliver them. Very straightforward drivetrain. It was interesting that they went with 6-inch wheels. I don't know if that's because of the bumps in the middle that they were concerned about, getting hung up on there. But yeah, just pretty much a pretty simple robot overall.
Yeah, we saw a couple of these guys, I think, that were on the simpler side, and that's a really nice strategy. We've started to reward strategic thinking sometimes in the CADathons a little bit more. And at least in principle, building a simpler robot that you can build is a great idea. Fortunately, these guys didn't have quite enough time for it. But great job competing. It's hard to just get a robot off the ground sometimes when you're just starting out. So awesome job, 4561. Next up, we've got team number 747, MRT 3216, which is made up of team members from team number 3216. These guys ranked number 18. We've got them up on the board. I don't remember which one you judged these guys.
So this was another one that I was looking at. The only concerns I had about this was the elevator supports. You can kind of see it in the picture there. They seem kind of thin, but then looking more at the elevator, it looked like there was a lot of bearing blocks and other things that could take a lot of the load. So I think overall those were just more guides. The actual winching for the elevator was very cool. The way they had that set up. And the drivetrain was just really awesome too. So I don't have a zoomed in picture of that, but I believe that was a swerve drive on that one. I don't know, Nick, if you remember if it was a custom swerve or if it was like I want to say it was like the flipped MKs or something like that.
I don't remember. Yeah. Yeah, but it's always nice to see a robot that really takes the the design of their elevator seriously, because anybody that's built one of those could tell you that there's a lot that goes into an elevator in FRC and doing one well. So it's a cool stab at it on this robot. It's a really large elevator too, which is kind of interesting to see on that.
Did they say they were trying to carry more than one? Because maybe that's why it's so big.
Yeah.
I mean, these Tetras were rather light compared to what they were in 2005. They were like 9 pounds in 2005. So,
if I remember correctly, they were trying to go for reach.
Okay.
I don't know if one of the team members is in chat and can correct me or not, but I'm pretty sure in the scouting sheet they were trying to go for reach, and possibly even maybe stability. I want to say there was one robot I believe that mentioned something about having more stages or something so that way it wouldn't fully extend. It would actually the bearings would be more closer together when it extended. So, which was an interesting approach. So.
And which makes a lot of sense in this game, because this game involved potentially very tall stacks at the high level, where the high level goals of this game started at about 5 feet in the air, and just got taller from there as you stacked on more Tetras throughout the game. So it's always good to think about that. So,
MK4 eyes, they said in chat. So. That's what I thought it was. So.
F4 eyes. Yeah, really cool modules. It's cool to see some of the new swerve stuff that's been released in the last year become these robots. All right. So next up, we've got team number 747. Wait, not 747. That 741 RoboHounds. I think it's messed up. So this team was made up of members of team number 4500, and they ranked 17th. With the robot that you can see in front of you.
This was me, and I thought that there was an interesting design, and it's kind of like an elevator, but each stage appeared to have kind of its own powertrain, and then you had a passive intake, but it's on some arms, and so I wasn't quite clear how they were planning to actually get the Tetras off of everything. I think maybe they're just hoping to put them on a stack and then drive back. But I think there was a little bit too much degrees of freedom in everything that they designed to really make this a top level robot. I think hopefully they learned a lot of stuff, and which ultimately is really what the goal of this whole thing is to expand your CAD skills. So, interesting design.
And there were scoring opportunities for that kind of low robot in this game. So it's not going low was not necessarily a bad choice, especially if you were intimidated by the concept of one of those big elevators or something like that. All right. So next up, we've got team number 746, Mech Tech Dragons, which is made up of members of team number 422. These guys ranked number 16.
This is me again. This was another just, simple robot that they, were just like grabbing tetras and kind of just pushing them off as fast as possible. I think they had some good details. They were one of the only ones that I saw that I judged where they actually like designed bumper mount brackets. Like a lot of them were just like put bumpers on and they're floating in space. So like they put details in places others didn't. So that was good, but I would have liked to maybe see some more detail up top. But great color scheme. Black and green is always good too.
Excellent color scheme. And overall, not a bad concept. I mean, I think in a lot of games you could see teams that do that kind of load from the loading station and don't even worry about picking it up from the ground and just score as simply as you can off of that. So not a bad call at all strategically. All right. And all right, next up, we've got team number 516, Alarm Clocked, who ranked number 15. Team number 516 is composed of Nathan Shepard. And we have one very long boy in that as a picture.
Yeah, this was again like, not fully designed, fleshed out. So there were some. I kind of had to go like kind of just look and guess how they were attaching everything. So the intake was interesting, and I'd like to actually see it be built to know how it would actually interact with the tetras in a real life situation. So, but I think they spent a lot of time on the intake, and then might have just ran out of time on everything else.
Did it look like the intake was fixed, like at that angle, or could they rotate it?
Do we have a better picture at all there, Tyler?
No,
okay.
We do not.
Yeah, I don't remember. I'd have to pull it up
okay.
again.
Yeah.
I'd be curious if that was if they were trying to be able to like dump by rotating it around or not. So
yeah.
Yeah, because it's angled, so it's like angled with the tetra. So I don't remember if it was articulated or not.
Yeah, and it was a really good. It's like a really cool kind of clean setup for this intake. Yeah. I looked at this too, and I was like, that's at a very minimum, that's cool looking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that intake is cool. It's a cool little intake. Yeah. It's a
potential's there.
Styling little thing there, right? Yeah. Yeah, that was a cool robot to take a look at it, even if it wasn't quite there. Next up, we've got team number 739, the Falcons, made up of members of team number 4099. These guys ranked number 14 with the robot that you see in front of you.
Yeah, I actually like this one. This was the one I judged. The elevator, simple intake, kind of just lift up, grab tetras. Kind of this classic, like a 2005 robot where, you just drive into it and hold it. And there's not a lot of defense in the scoring areas this way. So you didn't necessarily need a really complicated intake to like hold the tetras. You just needed to get them as fast as possible. So I think this robot would have potential. And it was relatively simple everywhere, so they could manufacture a ton of the cot swerve. So good stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that really separates some of the teams in here that very clearly looked to 2005 for inspiration, is that if you look at a lot of the successful robots that year, they were much simpler on the end effector design.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, part of that was
like
modern the game. Just the amount of motors you had were limited.
Yep.
Pneumatics was limited and all that stuff. So
it was a different era, but
yeah.
Also just in principle, that kind of, especially when you have a wacky game piece like the Tetras, that kind of approach where you can just, at least you can guarantee that you have one of them.
Absolutely.
It's a very thing. All right. And we have this was another Swerve Drive robot. A lot of those showed up in this game. Next up, we've got team number 737, Digital Minds. It's made up of team members from team number 5458. And they ranked number 13 in this CADathon with a very cool little robot, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, this was another one I judged. and I would have liked them to show some screenshots with their intake engaged in the Tetras, because just how it is, I'm not entirely sure. I think like they're kind of trying to grab like the two sides and a bottom, and I think like the amount of lining up that they would require to like always be where they need to be to grab it would slow them down. And I think that was one of the limiting factors. Everything else was really good, but I think just the intake, and that was kind of a running theme on more things I judged, was just like all the intakes I felt needed too much accuracy and lining up with the Tetra instead of just like grab and go, especially in a game where the defense is pretty limited. So
Yeah. That is a real, like, I dug into this intake a little bit, and it's a really cool little linkage type intake deal, right? Of that kind of hooking and action. And so it's really fun to see teams that play with that kind of, doing that kind of a mechanism. It reminded me a lot of like some of the hatch grabbers that you saw in 2019.
absolutely.
Right?
Well, and then like for these, you start stacking Tetras up, and like this, how like if you look at the screen, right? Like it's closed and it's holding it, and then when it goes to let go, it's going to hit all the Tetras that it's putting the next Tetra on. So like I don't think it's going to get stuck.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and that's tricky. That's doing that kind of stuff was tricky, and if this game was played for real, it would be a very hard game because of Tetris.
Yeah, but I mean, I liked their banks, like their nice air tank bank. I liked that they had an angled, articulated elevator that allowed them to get, a taller elevator to start, so they could have less stages but still get the height, all that stuff. So like there was some good forethought in there.
Yeah. So very cool robot. Nice job to team number 737. Next up, we've got our 12th ranked team number 751, Team Electron, which is made up of members of team number 3928.
Yeah, so this was one of the robots I judged. I like the combination, like short elevator, long arm, as well as like I felt like the pickup may take a little bit to line up. However, once you had it, I thought compared to some of the other robots in the CADathon, they did a good job of trying to capture the sides of the game piece. And as far as placing goes, kind of like what Eric was just saying, as soon as they set that on and they let go, they're gone. They're gone. They hands off, and it's free and clear. So, and then they also went with a swerve drive. And then if I remember correctly, I believe that's a suction climber on the back of this robot. I don't have my notes pulled up, but yeah, yep. So
I believe so.
Yep, suction climber on the back. We saw a lot of those, I think. So at least a couple on my side. So
a lot of teams taking inspiration from 2019 in a few different ways.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that kind of placement mechanism, like the thing that you were mentioning with the placement and like just being away, that I think that's something that several robots might have had good grabbers, but they didn't necessarily have good placers, right?
Right.
In order for them to score, they need to be on something, right? You don't. Getting them is only half of the battle. All right. Next up, we have team number. Just messed up my screen, but this is team number 591, Night Vision. This team is made up of Cooper, Undersama. I'm sorry, I have it like very small in this. And this is our team ranked number 11.
Yeah, so this is another one of the robots I looked at. Very simple mechanism as far as placing. It goes back and forth where it's like you don't really know how well it would work until you actually like built it and tried it. But for this one, I figured if they had something hooked, they went up and then they retracted the pistons or folded down, they would be able to clear before they're colliding. I don't think they would get entangled or anything. And then a really robust elevator with good elevator mounts, which is always nice to see. Sometimes people will mount an elevator and they'll put very little support where they did a good job of adding that extra support. So and then the paneling on the side too just ties everything together. And then the elevator motor looked pretty. I don't know what the gearing was exactly off the top of my head, but it looked fast. So which we've built fast elevators. I like fast elevators. So.
That call. Yeah, I think this is a really good example of that kind of like really kind of meat and potatoes tube and gusset style robot, right? Where they really have a salt like it's just looks very solid and
Yeah.
that
And as
is
much as I love seeing Swerve Drive on robots, it's also nice to see when teams commit to just something simple, and that's what they did with the drivetrain. Is they just made a super simple drivetrain, and it looked like it would work really well. About 1 second to full extension. So, is what chat just said. Cooper131 just said. So.
Nice. So great robot, Cooper. Really cool one to look through. Next up, we've got team number 379, Circular Dependency Detected, which is composed of Cal Brosh. And this is, and I'm sorry if I pronounced that name wrong, they ranked number 10. And this was a really cool robot to look at and poke around with. I think Eric, you judged this guy.
I did judge this one, and I think they were one of the most complete robots, but and like a good climber based off of the 2019 climbers of trying to get up on level 3. I think like tons of detail, like fantastic all around, but I ultimately like there were some things that I thought limited them, and like one of them was like the intake was massive, and I actually don't think it hold the Tetras at all. Because I think they come on the outside and like all those stars, like I don't actually think they're gonna hold them the way they think it's going to. I could be totally wrong, but but like if it does hold it, like I think it will be relatively good at taking, actually scoring and placing everything. But
yeah, and I think that the kind of whatever the kind of images that showed up in here with the of kind of like stacking them in place also. I think that kind of strategy is interesting, right? Because that kind of doing stuff outside your robot is always a little bit of a risk, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that's like it's also a lot of weight to manipulate and everything. So they're going to be draining a lot of power. So hopefully they have enough power at the end to actually climb. So
yeah, and it does look like they have pistons on the back of the
so it does
intake. So it kind of it pinches, got a little pinchy action going on. So it might be able to compress and hold those, but I don't think it'd be able to compress and pull them in. So very interesting.
And I took a quick look through this one. I've seen some 379 robots in my time. This is a good 379 robot. It was a really cool, really well designed one. So
because I mean, like I said, I ranked them high on manufacturing, the detail. I think I kind of docked them a little bit on strategic design and execution, just because of how the intake and how massive it was and everything. But like competitiveness, I thought it'd be pretty competitive, and obviously it's a well designed robot CAD wise. So
all right. So next up, we've got team number 362, Confused Diesel Mechanics, made up of members of team number 2168. These guys ranked number 9 with that very cool little robot.
This was me again. I don't remember a lot about this robot. Looking at it again, this was probably one of the first ones I judged. That's why. But there it is. Yeah, the 1114, climber from 2019. Relatively simple intake, and then just a nice elevator. And I think they really excel at climbing. I think their goal was to like get up and get down off the platform, so that's why they went with this thing. So I thought, overall, I think it'd be a pretty competitive robot, and there was some good design choices and simplicity in places where simplicity makes sense, and complexity where complexity made sense. So
and I think what one of the things that struck me out with this robot that it also genuinely felt like complete. Like I mean, you can see that intake, right? It's not, that grabber is not the most complicated intake that we saw here, right? But as a package, this robot felt like it was designed consistently, and like they thought through every bit of it. Right?
I think the intake was like would be the limiting factor, because I think it's like a clamper, so you got to grab and you got to really be well aimed, and that was. But otherwise, everything was good. And like there's lots of cool little hidden details in some of like the cutouts and stuff. Like if one of the pictures you saw, there was like a Pac-Man stuff. So there was some cool stuff in there.
Yeah. All right. And next up, we've got team number 744, Harker Robotics. This was team made up of members of team number 1072. And these guys ranked number 8.
Yeah. So this was one of the robots I looked at. They very complete elevator. It was very flushed out design wise. The manipulator was relatively simple. Nothing crazy. I had a weird arc too when looking at some of these robots where it's like, oh, on this robot, it totally makes sense. Just have a stick, right? That you're gonna hit and then be able to set down the Tetras. And then some of the robots were, they did like the Batman grappling hook and stuff. But yeah, very complete elevator. They did bumper mounts on this one. But overall, it just seemed like a very robust, simple forward robot that I don't think you would run into a ton of issues with at a competition. The elevator bearing blocks were really solid too. Everything looked very, that you could fabricate it with pretty simple means. So.
And honestly, just being able to say that about a robot designed for a CADathon is like its own impressive thing. Of like, I would expect this robot to function as you designed it. This thing that you 100%. Designed for a game that you had no prototyping anything for, and that. So like, and I agree. Like, they thought about the things that they needed to think about, right, with this robot.
So somebody just mentioned, how does that arm reach the Tetras? From my point of view, it looked like they could get it from the human feed station and then be able to stack it up on top of the main middle goal. I think they would struggle probably with the deeper post goal, but yeah, I believe that would work like that. So
yeah, they wouldn't quite be able to do that. All right. Next up, we've got team number 566, Sigma Motion's Uprising. This is made up of members of team number 2658, and they ranked number 7.
Yeah, so looking at this robot, the manipulator was very interesting. It's similar to some of the other ones that we saw where it looked like the jaws would open up to clamp, but then you could kind of lean it back so while you're driving around, you're not going to lose it. They did a swerve drive, just the MK4s, I believe, and then a suction climber. The kind of the unique thing with their elevator is their supports. They did a lot of these like thin posts. I would assume that would be fine because we've done thin posting like that before, but I don't know how it would hold up when you're all the way extended if you took like a really, really hard hit or something. So, but I kind of like some of these robots that use shorter elevators with a longer arm. I think for this robot, your elevator could probably have been even a little bit shorter too. But the elevator did seem pretty flushed out, and they had a lot of components laid out. So I felt like you could generate a bill of materials from this robot relatively easily. So.
Yeah, and that kind of cross bracing stuff isn't something that we saw in all the robot. Like we've seen some of the elevators before, right? And like that's a pretty clean way to do cross bracing. Sometimes is that those kind of crush tube type bracing.
Yeah, I think the only thing you're really missing on their section climber is an actual reaction point. So because right now it looks like all the weight would just try and pull it up. They needed a cantilever point for the suction to really do its work. That was the magic sauce.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I think that it was interesting to see kind of the variety of how teams did the suction climber and like how close they were to what actually worked in 2017 or 2019, right? Because the reaction point was one of the things, and I think one of the other big things was the surface area, right, that you were using to actually do the suction. And some of them ended up on a little bit on the small side in this one. But yeah, a very cool robot there. And next up, we have team number 607, Harker Robotics. Robotics. Got to pronounce it right. Which is composed of Alexander Liu and these guys ranked number 6, or he ranked number 6, with a very cool robot. Like,
yeah, this was me, and like
very cool robot.
big suction climber, and then well thought out elevator arm on an elevator so they can reach out and kind of 4-bar-ish.
Mhm.
But and then there's another thing is just wheeled intakes. I'm not sold that they do that well with this. Like this is something that these are something you just want to kind of go in, or you can kind of grab from the outside and you want to release them. But I don't necessarily, right, because like this is like 2019 hatch mech. Like I'm not entirely sure that this is gonna hold it. Like they did do a lower roller to try and keep the touchers from falling down, but I feel like one quick turn when you turn around, these are gonna go flying. Like I know those compliant wheels were super sticky, and I could be totally wrong, and I'd be happy to be wrong. But that was my whole thing. I was just like, I don't know if this would actually work.
So
But
I
everything
might
else
be
was great.
biased. I might be biased because of our 2019 robot.
I mean, we use that as well,
Yeah.
right? But it was a totally different thing. You're inside a hole and you pull it, and it's super flat, and that the hatch didn't weigh anything, and it didn't have, a 3D, a point of, its center of mass was behind your center of your thing. The center of mass on these Tetras, granted they only weigh a couple pounds, is in front of the wheel, so it's always going to want to be leaning forward. But
yeah, I think it would depend on the engagement from the backside of the the curve of the wheel to the actual wall, how much that Tetra would come into that. If it came in like well over half, you would probably be fine, right? Because that was the trick with the hatches, and I think some of that would carry over to this too.
Yeah, it also feels a little bit sensitive to like where on the Tetra you're hitting it, right?
Because
that
it doesn't
might
seem like you're
on this one
intaking it.
too.
You're going to drive into it and you're going to lift up and then you're going to pull out.
Yeah.
Right. So like
Yeah,
the
well, I
hatch
think it's
was
a
always in the same
combination.
location. You drive into it
Yeah.
and suck it in. But
Yeah, you're probably sucking while you're trying to lift, and that would kind of like lock it into place. I would think.
But yeah, I mean the elevator was lots of great detail, well thought out. I think it'd be really robust and fast. Suction climber, a good surface area that it had there is a place for reaction and everything like that. So I think it would do well.
So yeah, awesome job, Alexander, on this robot.
Sure.
That was
especially being one person doing this all by themselves. That is awesome.
That is a very impressive robot. Next up, we've got team number 543, Webheads, who ranked number 5. Webheads is composed of Caleb Jackson and Ariane Tashikori, and great color scheme. Just to start out with, right?
Yeah, major style points for this robot, that's for sure.
Major style points.
Yeah, so the big thing that I liked about this robot was in practice, I haven't seen the reverse 4-bar implemented a ton in FRC, more in like the smaller like the Vex or FTC type robots. So I was looking at this one, and minus a couple of points where it looked like they maybe forgot to add a spacer or something like that. This seemed like it was very feasible. The pickup mechanism seemed pretty straightforward as far as just being a simple kind of stick pickup, drive around. Like I said, I think with this game, it's very difficult to design a good wheeled mechanism, kind of like what we all were just talking about. So having like kind of a simple mechanism where you can drive in, you have a big area to shoot into, hook, and then drive away, I think is an advantage. From what I was looking at with the gearing, this looked fast. So I think they would be able to, get it up, place, get the robot packed away, and take off super quickly. So.
Yeah, I mean, that was all basically my thoughts as well. Loved that it was a simple, just drive in, lift up, drive away, run away, right? I mean, their thing did have a little bit of, so it could kind of pick it up and go. Like my only critique, right, is double reverse 4-bar. There's a lot of weight when you're up top, so you got to be really conscious of I don't want to drive around with this way up in the air. I've got to bring it down, so it's got to be fast up and fast down to make sure that you're never in a place to easily fall over.
And I'd also like to call this out just because I looked at this robot, and unfortunately we don't have a picture of it, but there's a really cool like Spider-Man cutout on the bottom, on the base plate of this robot.
Yeah.
Major style.
A+. A+. Very, very cool thing. And actually, you two, anybody viewing this, I believe this is one of the robots that agreed to share their CAD afterwards. So a lot of these robots will be available for you to take a look at. The links will be available for you to take a look at after the show, so you can learn from them and further explore them, because there's some fun robots to look at.
So in the chat, somebody was asking about the team numbers, and obviously they're just like randomly generated, but like, how do you randomly number generate? Because I mean, there's like 300s all the way to 700 or something.
So
right?
they actually aren't randomly generated. They are assigned sequentially. So we have actually had about 750 CADathon teams over the last 11 CADathons.
Okay, so like some of them might have been reused, like the same team comes back, so 345 has been in multiple. Okay, cool.
Yep. I actually still have CADathon team number 80 from back when I'd competed. But yeah, so sometimes you'll see some of those older numbers. That does mean that they have actually probably competed at least in a CADathon many years ago.
Awesome.
At this point. So yeah, very cool. Next up, we've got team number 735. And I will do my best to pronounce your name. Team name, drop table, team name. Bobby Drop Tables, I believe. These guys had another very stylish robot.
It was very hard to see though, because it's so black.
Yeah, I think they made a joke on their scouting sheet where they said that it's purple, and boy is it purple. Like they definitely leaned into that hard, which was awesome. So they're running a swerve drive. Their mechanisms seem like it would work pretty well as far as being able to attach and then deattach. The only concern I would have is if you got into a situation where you racked it or you had a collision or something like that. I could see like bending piston rods. They did attempt to like protect them, but I don't know if that's enough protection. Which same with their little robot legs that pop out the bottom. I would have some concerns about like stability with that, but that's stuff you don't know until you actually like build a robot, right? But as far as like the CAD is concerned, it's very detailed. I believe they even ran wires on this robot, if I remember correctly.
In a few places.
So yeah. So they were very, very detailed. They just did a fantastic job. A lot of the gusseting stuff was just awesome. And I believe those middle, the black posts in the middle, believe it or not, the not purple posts are screw leads. So they would actually screw lead those down to lift themselves up to get into a climbing position.
Yeah, this is a fun robot to look at. Took a look at this. I loved the little details that they put in around the plastic covers, just like that kind of like minor detail type stuff. So sometimes you see some of those details and you're like, I wish that they had spent more time on somewhere else on the robot. But I think that these guys very clearly spent some time on the rest of the robot. So really cool robot. Rank number 4. Drop table was composed of Jack Leland. So great job, another solo runner, and a really cool robot out of that. I don't know, Eric, if you wanted to say something out of that.
Yeah, I mean, most of my critiques for like the top 5 were like really awesome robot. I think they just would struggle a little bit in having to score as fast as they said they would because of alignment issues. I think like this robot would probably be top caliber if they didn't even have that intake, and their arm that's just sticking out that holds it was just it, and it would just fly. I think the lead screws, I didn't notice that they were lead screws. I think the lead screws might be a little bit not as strong as they would need to be to actually lift up. There might be a little bit of bendiness to them.
A lot of alignment on there, right?
Yeah, but everything else is great, right? And my biggest complaint was it was hard to see the detail because it was so black. But
All right, so now we're going to be getting into our top 3, and we've got some great prizes provided by Rev Robotics for our top 3 teams. First up will be our ranked number 3 team, obviously, and this is team number 345, the Meme Team, made by Kevin Chavel. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. And oh boy, this robot. Oh boy, this robot.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. Tons of detail, tons of integration, lots of handoffs. I mean, the intake obviously inspired from the California teams who all had the same intake in 2018. And everything, and then like they build stacks on the robot, which great. Like lots of teams in 2005 did that as well. Like everywhere you look is in here. Like they were like the only team that actually put catted in the sponsors and stuff like that. So I think if we had a wow factor above 4, they definitely would have gotten whatever the max was, because it was all there.
Yeah, this robot, like if you had a question, it had an answer for it. Like every mechanism on it, to the Tetra turner, I thought was just fantastic. Just a ton of detail. I've never judged a CADathon before, so this was my first exposure seeing all these awesome robots. And this was actually the first robot I opened up, and I was just shocked because I was just like, man, this detail is just fantastic. So I just really impressed. The elevator was really cool. Like Eric was saying, the handoff, it was just really, really great. It was funny looking at the rendering and then seeing 713 in the background too. Like that was really great. So, but just overall, really awesome robot.
Yeah, and I think that concept of like building the stacks on the robot, especially for a game like this where you can do the two stacks for most of the game, and then you can do 6 of them at the end. I think that kind of a mechanism really made a lot of, like, at a high level of play, I think made a lot of sense, as opposed to trying to do it off of your robot or something like that, right? Just because it gives you control the entire way through the process of scoring, in a way that a lot of the robots just wouldn't have had that we saw for this. So awesome job, Kevin. Ranked number 3, and he'll be taking home a $25 Rev Robotics gift card after this. So, very exciting.
It is exciting.
It is. And Rev has some really cool stuff that came out recently.
That we do.
All right. Next up, we've got our number 2 ranked team, 54. And this was another really cool 2019 inspired robot. This is the TechBot is composed of team members of team number 3158. And yeah, we had a little bit of just a fun little thing coming up. We had a little bit of an error getting their CAD at around submission time. And when I opened it up and I saw it, I was like, that was worth it. that was worth it to see this robot.
Yeah, this robot's got a lot of really cool features. I like that they traded the the simplicity of or the simplicity for their drivetrain of just being a straight 6, right? And they're using 4-inch wheels, like that's awesome. And then they put the rest of the robot together, and they're like, oh, you know what we need a turret. We need the whole top of it to spin to make it a lot easier to drive between cycles. So it seemed like they had a lot of thought process of like, how do we optimize? How do we make it faster? They had the suction climber, and then they had the arm at the pivot, the arm for their manipulator to pivot at the top of their elevator, so they could kind of spend most of the match compacted until they needed to go up for higher placement. So overall, just really awesome detail. And I think strategy wise, they really thought this through, as far as like how they wanted to actually run a cycle and actually play the game. And they just like leaned really hard into that. So I think that turret would help them long term as far as being able to quickly readjust and say, oh, nope, just kidding, I want to place over here. And then they can back up and place there. So it gives them a lot of versatility.
For sure. And this was this was one you judged, and when we got all done, it was the first one that I judged when we came back for the top 5, and I was like, oh, nobody's going to beat this. And then I opened up who actually did number 1, and I'll tell why I think they were the better robot. But yeah, love the simple drive, the turret. I was like, whatever. I think it has some strategic advantages, and all that stuff. But and then they had me everywhere. I was like, good, there's detail. I'm looking everywhere. And then I got to the intake, and again, I was like, I just don't know how this is going to interact well with the Tetras and then scoring the Tetras. But everything else is really good. So
I think the team also made a really good use of welding in a way that a lot of the other teams didn't. Like, so it was really cool to see a team that like really designed around one of their manufacturing capability. Like we had teams that really focus on that. Like that was one of the really cool things about 345's robot, right? Is that they just leaned 100% into the sheet metal manufacturing, right? And this robot leaned 100% into welding, right?
Yeah, I feel like some teams are like, yeah, of course we have a Mark Forge, we can 3D print stuff, right? Like, but this team was like, no, we weld stuff. This is what we typically do, and they like, yeah, like you're saying, they just really leaned into that, which was awesome.
And I think I love they clearly took inspiration from several robots over the last couple of years, and and they did whatever they could to learn it, and then if only they had the actual opportunity to build this robot and like program it and learn from it, I think this team would be sitting really good for the future. I mean, still sitting really good for the future with the CAD skills that this team has. So
yeah, totally.
And TechBot will be taking home a $25 robotics gift card for their trouble. So congratulations. Oh yeah, and then also just I don't think we really mentioned it, like we mentioned a little bit. They have a really cool suction climber on the back of that too.
Absolutely.
Like,
this was John's number one robot.
Yeah.
And then the other robot was my number one robot. And then we kind of we needed a third party because they tied. So
yeah.
Just and from the turret with the suction climber and like just overall like it was really thought out. It was a really cool robot. So that's why I was and I'm a big sucker for wheeled intakes, obviously. So
we all have our preferences on robots. All right.
Yeah,
so on the our first team, our number one team, we've got team number 713, Safety Tips, composed of Jake Moloney and Sharik Siddiqui. I apologize if I butchered that name. And this was also an extraordinary robot with one of the coolest little serpentine belt patterns that I've seen. Like, make use of that. I'll you guys take it away because like this, there's a lot to talk about with this one.
There is so much to talk about this one. I mean, they custom designed a differential swerve that looks amazing, and just so much detail. That the double elevator, right? So they can pick up two tetras on opposite sides of the robot. Amazing. And then just a simple grab and go, lift and go. Like they're not holding on. They're just grabbing. Like there's just so much to this robot. It's crazy. I love it. I think somebody mentioned when we were talking judging, right? It's just like the pathway for the rigging for the elevator is probably the one ding they had. It was just a little bit over the top, but otherwise, so much detail in this. Like this was another one that
because they thought about it, right?
Oh, like, absolutely.
They thought about that rigging, and it's ridiculous, but like,
but I mean, like they have two elevators, so
right?
These elevators are going to be light because they have two of them, right? So and they're going to fly up and down, and they're going to cap, they're going to turn around and cap again, or they're going to cap, drive away, and cap something else.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much that they can do with this.
And when I saw the robot, I thought, well, why don't they just have one elevator and they just have the thing flip over on the other side? And then the more I was looking at it, I'm like, oh, they're just like trying to just optimize the bejesus out of this thing. They're like, you know what, make us like, a quarter second faster, add another elevator. And just the appreciation of just being like, you know what, we already have this really good mechanism. We're just going to copy paste, put it here, and it's going to increase our, strategy and our scoring potential. And it's a fantastic robot. The climb is really cool. Like,
absolutely. And this is one again.
What's better than one? Two.
John judged first, and so I read his notes, and his first thing was like, "This differential swerve is amazing," and I was like, "Oh, that's going to be all that the robot is," because I was like, if you spent all this time designing a diff swerve, I mean, that's not easy. So that's time consuming, and I was like, "Oh, this is going to be a cool drivetrain," and that's it. And then I was like really surprised that it was so high, and I was like, "Oh wow, blown away!" So,
one of my comments was like, "Please release this Diffie Serve," because I feel like so many people would want to be able to see it and look at it, and it was just a really cool concept. It was unique, and just the detail of the robot too, all the other electronics and like the belt pathing and everything, just overall just a fantastic robot, and the color scheme was on point.
In the chat, Armored Duck says that they did it before the CADathon and it's already released.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Pre-release CADathon. That's it. So
All right, I'll have
Good
to
use,
hunt that down then. Yeah, I looked for it. I didn't see it, so I'll have to hunt that. I must have missed that.
I think it will be. I think if I remember correctly, they did agree to release the CAD of this robot specifically too. So I think it'll be
Cool.
in there too. So anybody that wants to take a look at that will be able to.
I just posted it in the Discord app.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Nice. So
yeah, somebody was talking about like 345 should have won. I mean, 345 had a great robot. I just think they weren't optimized as well as others. So.
Yeah. I think there's something to be said too about a little bit of simplicity, right? So this robot here its manipulator is a stick, right? And if you practice with that and you're less likely to get tangled on things, I think there's a lot to be said about that.
For sure.
So 345 did an amazing job. Don't get me wrong. It was
and
that robot blew my socks off. But
yeah, absolutely. And I think if like this was like 2005, where you could hold as many Tetris as you possibly could,
mm-hmm.
like 345 would be one of the best robots in the world, because it's just gonna just stack them up and drive away, and then I'm gonna drop a stack of 6 over here, and I've still got 6 on my robot. I'm gonna go drop 6 somewhere else, right? So like the potential is there. Just this game didn't necessarily need to stack on your robot. So, but still very, very amazing robot.
Yeah, hands down, both of them are just awesome robots. It's just there was very small details that led us in certain directions. That's all. So
yeah, I think they just got dinged by both of us. 345 in competitiveness. We felt that the other two would be more competitive.
Yeah,
otherwise
I think
they were relatively even scores everywhere else.
Yeah, and it's hard to judge automation, right? Because like you're gonna like what your workflow is, right? If you look at 713, it's like they go up, they stick into a game piece, they drive over, they place the game piece, right? Like that's a very simple process. And then you look at 345, it's like, okay, they're gonna grab a game piece, they're gonna load it. If they mess something up, they might have to turn something, then they have to like stack again. So it just adds a couple more steps. So that's where they kind of incurred a couple of those dings, if that makes sense. So. But detail-wise and CAD-wise, they're both phenomenal robots.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So awesome job to all of the competitors in this thing. Safety tips for the troubles will be taking home a $50 Rev Robotics gift card, so which hopefully they can make some use of this season. Awesome job. Thanks to our judges. Thanks to everybody that competed. We'll be releasing the scores and all of that fun stuff shortly after the show. I think that's what we got for tonight. So thanks everybody.
Yeah, thanks again for having us. Appreciate it. It was a ton of fun. It was really great seeing all the awesome robots.
Yeah,
for sure.
All right. And that has been the CADathon 11 awards show. You can join us this summer where we will have CADathon 12, which has a brand new set of other people on the GDC. So we are very excited for the game that we're planning this summer. Hopefully everybody has a great and safe season, and we'll see you at the competition.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to stay up to date on our new videos. Keep the conversation going and provide your input to our content. Watch our live shows at twitch.tv/firstupdatesnow. Join our Discord at discord.gg/firstupdatesnow. And check out Fun FTC on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and First Updates Now on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter.